The Dead Pixel Society is returning to the annual D-Scoop Global Conference. We're once again hosting a Photo Imaging Connect mini conference track at D-Scoop Edge St. Louis World Expo May 7th through 10th, 2023 at the America Center, conveniently located in the heart of downtown St. Louis, Missouri. In addition to the excellent D-Scoop education and networking program, there will be 4 45-minute sessions, 2 on Monday, May 8th, and 2 on Tuesday, May 9th, specific for the photo imaging segment. Go to photoimagingconnect.com for more information and to get a special $50 discount on your registration fee. Hope to see you in St. Louis in May.
Welcome to the Dead Pixel Society podcast, the photo imaging industry's leading news source. Here's your host, Gary Pageau. The Dead Pixel Society podcast is brought to you by Media Clip, Advertech Printing, and IP Labs.
Hello again and welcome to the Dead Pixel Society podcast. I'm your host, Gary Pageau, and today we're joined by Jeremy Wills, who is the Principal Analyst of Imaging for Futuresource in the UK. Hi, Jeremy. How are you today?
Hey Gary, how are you doing? I'm great, thanks. It's Friday evening here, so I'm in quite good spirits. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, hopefully I won't keep you from the pub too much longer, but we're here to talk about European photo data, and Futuresource is probably the leading source for reliable industry data related to the photo printing, photo merchandise market. Can you talk a little bit about how Futuresource gathers this data before we dive in?
Yeah, sure. Just as a bit of background, I think maybe about 20 years ago, because we primarily are working with, the hardware side of the imaging business. Some of the camera companies said to us, look, you guys are, capturing all this camera data. Could you do something on the photo printing side of things? That's how it all began with back in the day with photo prints. Obviously, a very different kind of market to the one we see now. But and then we've got into the books, photo books and merchandise as it comes along. And our methodology, I think generally as a research firm, is very much based on sort of top up, bottom down. We get either via primary research interviews and data feeds information from brands in the photo sort of world. Then we talk about print service providers, apps, retailers, e-tailers, cross-referencing with equipment and paper companies, and sometimes a distribution channel as well, just to get an analytic and realistic view of the market, the channels, the competitive landscape, and the outlook as well. That's how we do it. It's very much based on our own primary research. It's nice to have some secondary sources of data. Some of the big players in the photo sector publish quarterly and annual reports, but we were very reliant upon information which isn't in the public domain. And of course, our own knowledge of the market's built up over 20 odd years, plus our reasonably robust sort of analytical and forecasting skills as an analyst firm, which goes obviously way beyond imaging into the sort of wider sphere of technology.
Yeah, because Futuresource Consulting does more than photo imaging. There's other categories like consumer electronics and other things that you're involved in. So you've got a long history and a long expertise in marketing research. Can you talk first about when we talk Europe, what countries are we talking about?
Well, nowadays, we think the countries we track in Europe are the 6 largest Western European markets. So France, Germany, Benelux, Italy, Spain, UK. Sorry, not quite alphabetical, but and the reason we centered around those is, well, there's 2 reasons. One, it is quite a mature market. It's still growing. We'll come on to that, but it's a mature market, and it's maturing both in terms of the direction it's heading in, the players in the market, but also because those 6 countries are, give or take, around 80% of overall Western European volume and value. Commercially in this day and age, it's really having that overall, I guess, key view, which is most important to some of the the companies we're working with. So it doesn't say we don't occasionally pick up reviews for other European markets, but they're the core ones that we focus on now for that reason.
Well, and then that makes sense. I mean, if you cover 80% of Western Europe, that's the bulk of the market, and the remaining 20%, I'm sure a lot of the insights still apply. So for the photo market market value piece, when I look at some of your information, it looks like Futuresource centers the market, really the output market, in three areas: photo books, photo merchandise, and photo prints. Before we dive kind of deep into those, can you go over what is in those categories so we kind of understand what you mean by merchandise versus a print, for example? Because sometimes there's some crossover in
Sure.
category.
I think that the first thing to say is that what we're tracking is what we call the consumer ordered market. So product that a consumer is ordering doesn't have to necessarily be an image they've captured themselves, the image they have on some kind of device. Obviously, a lot of people are ordering from smartphones nowadays or PCs, either in store or online. So consumer ordered, there's a bit of a gray area because people sometimes will use a consumer firm, like, for instance, Shutterfly in the US to order a wedding album, but generally it's, family holidays, things like that.
Right.
And then the categories, photo prints. So any kind of commercial photo print, whether it's printed at retail in a photo lab or a PSP, anything up to about 8 by 8 inches. I was thinking in centimeters, but converting into inches for the US market. And beyond that, we consider it to be a poster. So that's for us is photo prints. We include home printing, which can be on a home print. It could be on something like an HP Sprocket. I know there's other devices as well, a print device. We don't include the likes of the instant cameras. That's not part of the market we cover. That's almost a separate category which never got into. And irrespective, I guess, of the technology, whether it's silver halide, inkjet, dye sub, whatever it may be. So, and we standardize our market sizing around 6 by 4 inch prints, just so that we've got a consistent way of counting the market, I guess. Photo books, any commercially produced photo book, printed at retail, printed by a back-end photo lab, ordered online, ordered in store, though that's becoming less common. Lay flat, silver halide, whatever it may be, soft hard cover.
Right.
Again, with consumers' own images in. And once again, it's a little bit of a grey area because sometimes people may be doing a run of a few for commercial purposes, but bulk of them, again, will be, wedding, christening, family holiday, those kind of things, gift for, Christmas. Q4 on both sides of the Atlantic is the big boom season for the photo industry. And then the merchandise is, I know some people include books in merchandise, but we've always broken out. So within merchandise, we've got some broad categories, which is photo calendars, photo cards. Then we have wall decor, which includes multiple substrates. Obviously, canvas has been the big one for a while, but we've got acrylic, wood, alu, dye bond, various other substrates there, all within that wall decor category. And then we split posters out from wall decor. And the reason we do that is posters generally are, there's a higher volume, but there's a much lower ASP. And then the opposite with the wall decor, where you've got a high end acrylic, alu, dye bond going for way above €100, $100, £100. So if you blend the two together, you get this unholy mix of low price, high volume, and higher price and low volume, and the numbers look ridiculous. So we keep the two separate. And then the other category is the myriad of photo gifts, which is constantly reinventing itself. I think it's come to this side of the Atlantic now from the US, but we've got blankets, flip-flops, tins, you name it. I mean, there's the evergreens like mugs and mouse mats and key rings and things like that, but there's hundreds and hundreds of SKUs of these photo gifts, clocks. It just goes on, and it reinvents itself. I mean, a few years ago, phone covers were big, and I think possibly they still are.
But not nearly what they used to be, right? I mean, that used to be like a major emphasis for people, and now I hardly ever hear much about it. I think partly because there's so many varieties possible now, it's difficult to keep the popular ones in stock.
Exactly. There are so many different models of phone. I mean, phones themselves are interesting as a bit of an aside because, they're the de facto image capture device. Now we've seen cameras. I just saw an advert, and maybe I was hallucinating because it was late night. I was tired, but I saw an advert for a Samsung phone the other day without wanting to endorse any particular brands that they were saying had something crazy, like a 200 megapixel set of cameras. And you just think away. I mean, again, that might not be correct, so don't quote me on that. But so I could have missed.
No, I think you're right. I think there are some Chinese brand smartphones coming out,
Mm.
200 megapixel
Yeah.
cameras, and I think Samsung's announced one in the pipeline. Samsung or Sony
Mm.
has announced a 200 megapixel chip, so
Mm.
I think it's definitely coming.
Yeah.
I'm really curious as to the instant piece
Mm.
of what you're not covering, because over here, that is a pretty significant market. I can't tell you how large it is, but it is. If you go to a Best Buy or a Target, there's significant end cap space being dedicated to the Fujifilm
Mm.
Instax, the Polaroid version, and things like that. So clearly, it's a very popular category. But in your print numbers, you're not including
No,
that, just to be
no, we
clear.
don't. It's not
Okay.
something we don't pick. And the
Okay.
same, albeit we might pick up some of it in our home data because people are using these little
Yeah.
mobile printers. The thing
Okay.
I will say for things like the Polaroid and Fujifilm Instax is that I think they've actually sort of driven a breath of life into the wider photo print sector because
Sure.
in the Western European market the online business is strong and it's getting stronger, but instant print kiosks, which do exist in the US but never been as strong in the US, are really, really big in retail in Western Europe. Self-service touchscreen instant kiosks, often where you pay at a terminal with a card nowadays rather than having to pay for the prints before the machine delivers them. And a lot of the retailers have seen that the volumes, the basket size maybe has fallen, but they've been able to push the pricing up and up and up on those. And Gen Z and some millennials with that kind of mindset of coming from Instax and other types of camera have then started printing photos on a kiosk. They're very agnostic to the price. They'll happily pay what's the equivalent in euros or British pounds, nearly $1 a print. They're not printing many of them, and they stick them up on the wall on clothes pegs, and then they change them regularly. And that is actually, we've had quite a few inquiries in recent years about the photo prints market again, commercially as an analyst firm, and we kind of thought that was dead and dying, but it's not. It's very much alive.
It's funny you should say that, because I've recently had on one of the mobile app vendors, and they do a lot with photo prints on the podcast, and he was talking about the need for the industry to raise prices because he said 29 cents a print doesn't reflect the value of what younger consumers are willing to pay. And you supported that. I mean, I had not thought about that coming from the Instax world, where it's more than $1 a print, right? So they're probably looking at 29 cents going, that's a great value, when they, like you said, they would pay more because they're not going to print as many, obviously, as their mom or dad or grandparents.
Exactly. And it's that immediacy as well. I mean, I think when people are still going for a bit more volume, then sure, they'll order them from Shutterfly in the US. And again, I'm just taking an example. I'm not promoting anybody from maybe Photobox, Albelly, or Snapfish or somebody in Europe. And that is still a little bit more competitive. But again, people are not going to the store and having 200-300 prints off a mini lab. That was the case for a long time. I think we were in that mindset when we moved from film to digital, that even though we had all the images on an SD card from a camera, we still printed the whole lot out because that's what we did.
Right, exactly. So before we dive into your data, I got one more question about film. Are you seeing the resurgence in film processing and printing over there? I mean, I didn't hear you mention film, so I just want to touch on this a little bit, because I know it's a weird category. Over here, people are saying they're processing more film than they ever did 10 or 15 years ago. And
we are,
growing, but do you account for that in like the print side, or since a lot of these are just process and scan,
exactly,
there is no direct output usually right away, at least. What are your thoughts on the film market in Europe?
Yeah, film is definitely on the up. There's no doubt about it. I went to a photo show called Photopia in Hamburg late last year, and I saw a fantastic AGFA standard, almost got the recreation of a sort of like 30-40-year-old photo store inside with all these great films and also selling reconditioned cameras. It's hot. There's no doubt about it. I mean, we've seen Kodak bring in back some films, maybe some of the other brands as well. But as you say, that the thing is, there's a company opened up in London just processing film with new equipment in the last year or so, but a lot of it is processed and scanned, as you say. It's not necessarily getting to that printed stage. So we do see, I think, maybe the overall interest in film cameras again from younger generations, it is probably helping to slow the decline in the output of film prints, which off the top of my head, I haven't got the data in front of me, but it's probably less than 10% of the overall digital print sector here in Western Europe now. But it's slowing that decline for sure. But a lot of what is caught on film is not ending up as photographic prints. Where it does, it's possibly an enlargement or something specific rather than just.
It's more like it ended
Yeah.
up probably as a canvas, probably.
Yeah, or that kind of thing.
Something like that than a traditional 4x6 print.
Yeah. So yes, it's definitely hot. I mean, some of my colleagues in Futuresource who are in their 20s are really into film photography. It's a definite trend. There's no doubt about it.
I just hope that what I'm concerned about as an industry person is, kind of the infrastructure for the film process, if you will, is kind of being stuck together with baling wires and glue, right? Because their film processors are having trouble getting parts for their machines. There's some question whether you can get chemistry, and there's some question how long certain manufacturers are going to be staying with silver halide printing material. So it's interesting that it is popular. There's a lot of things in the value chain that could get broken.
Indeed. They, as you say, a lot of the actual processing equipment for this film stuff is from year verily, and the brands are long since gone. So there's always a danger there. But I guess, we've seen this with, as an aside, with the vinyl industry, the way that's boomed in the last sort of 5, 6, 7 years. That there were 1 or 2 companies left in the world that made vinyl presses, and all of a sudden their demand is fantastic because the disc pressers want to buy vinyl presses again, and I never would have seen that coming 20 years ago.
Right. Yeah, I think this was the first year, actually, or last year was the first year that vinyl actually exceeded CDs again in terms of sales. And there are people who are coming back with photo printers. I think I did a podcast with a gentleman from Australia, a company called Film Never Die, that has come out with a kind of an open source film processor platform, and I think Calenta is coming back with some products. So I think but again, if you're a photo lab and you've got your Fuji film processor from the mini lab days, keeping that thing going has been a challenge.
Yeah, indeed. The other interesting thing is in recent years as well, and I think maybe, and again, I'm not promoting any brands, but it has been a bit of a phenomenon as we've had the Free Prints app in Europe that started out with photo prints, and that has other incarnations like books and cards. I don't know what you call them. Wall tiles. I'm just looking at one on picture of me and my niece on the wall in my office here. Wall tiles. Yeah, that's it. But they've helped to drive some interesting volume from apps and from people that maybe never were no longer or hadn't ever come to photo printing. And the result of that for some of the PSPs is that they've actually had to invest in equipment for digital film prints as well in recent years, which again, a lot of them, I guess, thought they wouldn't have to ever do again.
And they never thought it would come. So let's talk a little bit about some of the information, the data that you've been sharing publicly about kind of the post-COVID world. 2001, I'm looking at one of the reports here. It says 2001 was a challenging year due to the lack of print-worthy images from 2000, right? People, 2000 or 2020 and 2021, people weren't generating print-worthy images, right? But now, coming out of the pandemic, in a lot of ways, right? I know there's still some regions that are still dealing with pandemic measures and things like that, but you're still seeing substantial growth coming out of that. Yeah. Can you talk about some of the growth patterns that you're seeing? Is it in all categories or is it in other categories? Where is that growth happening?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that a lot of the growth in the photo sector now, consumer photo sector, has been driven by the books and the merchandise. And if I step back slightly, it's something as an interesting kind of trend there, because if we go 2019 and a few years before then, the West European photo book sector was continuing to exhibit value growth with higher end products, silver halide, lay flat, more pages, bigger books, those kind of things. But the volume was kind of plateauing. But we've gone through the 2020 boom when everybody had time on their hands at home and made books and did wall decor.
Puzzles were huge in North America.
Yeah. And what's come out of that is we're actually seeing, after a bit of a sort of, I guess, a bit of a sort of knee-jerk dip last year, that the volumes as well as the values are now, we see growing again in that book sector. Maybe people, because they are, like me, remote working several days a week and have a bit more of a work-life balance in some ways, a bit more time to, to put into making photo products or to thinking about making photo products. So that is driving the growth. And our CAGR there for 22 to 26 on books for these Western European sector is about 4%. We're looking on the merchandise at about 5%. The prints are flat volume-wise. The value's still growing. People are paying more. The race to the bottom for prints, where sort of, I don't know, sub $10, sub 10 cents in the US, sub 10 euro cents in Europe, is probably over. People do like to monetize them now. So what that's doing to photo prints is that we're looking at the value there, I think, increasing by about 7% between last year and 27. And the volume's kind of flat, which, if you think not that many years ago, it was dropping in about 10% a year, is in itself a bit of a departure. And also, it's still, again, off the top of my head, looking at these figures for last year, and we've got just over €3 billion market for consumer photo products in Europe, and prints was 1.3 billion of that. So it's still holding its share of the market, not insignificantly. Yeah.
And it's still a high, from a production standpoint, it's a relatively high margin product, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the things. It's basically a piece of paper with a coating on it. And, if you're depending on your own economics and production, you can make money at 10, 15 cents per, and just not a crazy amount like you used to. And as we've suggested, perhaps it's time to raise prices. So, so let's talk a little bit about photo books, because, I keep hearing from people who have been in the industry a long time, who, maybe go back 10 or 15 years and, they remember the days when photo books were, this is the next future growth category for the industry. It's what the consumer wants. It is the photo album of the future. It is going to be the savior. And clearly that really hasn't happened. And so they tend to have a cloudy view of photo books. But as you're saying, it's still a healthy growth rate. What is driving that growth? Because I always hear from people talking about, they're still too complex to make. They're not for everybody, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So what is continuing to drive the growth?
I think there's three things I guess I could break out there. One is that we could almost split the photo book market into two sectors now. One is the sort of the core A4, which I'm just looking at my data here. We're looking at what the A4s were about half the market volume-wise in 21, 22, I would say. And then you've obviously got some of the larger sizes that come out of that. And then you've got, I guess, a bit of a newer paradigm, which has been driven by some of the apps on both sides of the Atlantic, which is, smaller square and soft cover and hard cover,
right?
20 odd side photo books from the likes of Chatbooks, Free Prints, Popsa, just again naming a few brands without promoting anybody specifically. And they've created almost a new strata in that sector. There's lower costs, easy to produce, quite often with a bit of AI, bang, 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 and you're done. Almost the Amazon model of click, 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 and you're done kind of thing. I think they've actually generated a bit of incremental volume in the market, whilst at the same time, both the brands and the PASPs have continued to, understandably push and promote higher end products and to try and take customers that have been buying A4 on a journey for photo paper, lay flat, nicer, covers and all sorts of other SKUs which are available now. So I think amongst all of that and the fact that we were saying that maybe consumers who are lucky enough to be remote working, if lucky is a word to use, that just have a bit more time on their hands because they're not spending an hour and a half in the car per day.
Or on the tube, if I may use the
on the train.
So what you're saying is that even within the photo book market, it's kind of bifurcated there, where you have the small, simple, app-driven book, and then the other half is what I would call the creative publishing mindset, where it's a bigger book, lay flat, hardcover. Maybe that's your trip to your big vacation trip or something like that. And you think the growth is coming from the smaller format?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Adam Pacifico, host of the UK's #1 ranked leadership podcast, The Leadership Enigma. We're helping leaders, their teams and organisations all over the world discover new strategies, trends, tools and techniques to succeed in a world that won't stop changing. With well over 100 episodes, our guests have included top CEOs, Olympic athletes, undercover police officers, former NBA players, psychologists, New York Times best-selling authors, military commanders, academics, TED speakers, and more. We'd love you to join the conversation. Click on the show notes and be part of the Leadership Enigma community.
I think the volume growth is coming more from the smaller format. A lot of the value growth is coming from the larger format. The smaller format, I mean, there's brands that are obviously monetizing that. I need to be careful. I was going to say the elephant in the room, but I don't want to be too prescriptive. But you've got the free prints model where it's kind of free, although the delivery charge effectively pays for the product. And then there's an upsell. I mean, it's been going for years, so it must work. Otherwise, the software company behind it wouldn't continue to operate it. But you've got that going on as well. So as an entry level to consumers who, like, I remember somebody saying to me, "Oh, there's this app called Free Prints. I can get photo prints. I haven't done that for years." And they've come into books, and that can take some of them onto the journey to, I guess, to other brands, other sizes, those kind of things. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Touching a little bit by country, clearly Germany is the dominant player in that market. But all of the countries, it looks like, from what I'm looking at, are seeing growth.
Yeah, I think it across all of the markets. I mean, there definitely is growth. I mean, if I look at the splits here, if I can find the right. I mean, I'm just looking at photo book splits here because I don't actually have any data right in front of me showing the combined splits across the photo market. But yeah, Germany it's 40% of the market. It's very mature. Photo book's been around for a long time. It's got the whole save B2B2C phenomenon. You get off a plane in Germany, you see a save photo advert in the baggage hall. It's that mindset that they and as consumers they just love photo products. They're really, really into photo products. But France, Benelux, both been in photo books for quite a while. France has got a very, very saturated market of players. Benelux has got some very well-established players. I think again the Netherlands tend to, from what I understand, buy more books than Belgian consumers. So there's some different dynamics going on there. And I guess that's another thing to touch on when we compare European market of whatever X 100 million people are in these 6 countries with the US, that they've in different languages, different cultures, different dynamics that drive all these markets in slightly different ways. The UK's come probably much later to photo books, but some of these brands and apps I've talked about, particularly within e-commerce, because the UK is a huge e-commerce market. We're a small island. It's easy to deliver things to people because nothing's that far away, really. So we lend ourselves superbly to e-commerce, and that's helped to drive some of the sort of web to home photo book activity in the UK as well. And then you've got the sensitivities to the markets as well. Italy and Spain, Southern Europe, very price sensitive. The Germans like to see a product before they buy it. So web to retail works well in Germany because they want to actually see the book before they part with their money. Whereas here in the UK, we'll pay up front and wait for it to come through the post. So it's all these different kind of dynamics going on as well.
It's interesting you describe, CA as a phenomenon, because I've always been impressed the fact that they do, they obviously their heritage was the traditional wholesale lab. People didn't really know who they were. And then when photo books came in, they really pushed the brand very strongly. I've always wondered, and obviously they're reaping the rewards of that. I mean, look at what's happening in the photo book market there. And I've always wondered, wow, what if there were Shutterfly planes in North America, right? Or Snapfish or one of the big brands doing that sort of level of awareness that CVE does. So I think, and have been doing it for years, because like it's a cumulative effect. I mean, they've been doing it now for 10, 15 years. So it's just, to me, as a person who's interested in marketing, I think that's sort of a missed opportunity that most other countries have missed out on, is keeping it in front of consumers, right?
Yeah. It you know, as a consumer in Germany, you can go to multiple retailers, but the prominence is that it's a CVE produced photo book. I think that also carries quite a lot of weight in France, Benelux. Maybe we don't cover them anymore, but some of the Nordic markets as well. They're influenced, and into Central Europe, it's quite a broad influence. Yeah, no doubt about that.
So can you talk a little bit about some of the different channels that photo books are offered? Because there is sort of the web to retail and then web to home. Does that change based on the country? Is that something that is country specific?
Yeah, there's a bit of a distinction. I mean, I'll start with Spain, because generally Southern Europe, or Spain and Italy, they still quite like their, as you guys call, mum and pop kind of photo stores, as opposed to big, because there's not so many big chains there. But at the same time, if I look at Spain, they've had the Hoffman brand, which came from the photo album days, and has been a massively dominant part of the market, which has driven, quite a lot of online photo book behavior in Spain. But yeah, people will still order in stores much more in Spain and Italy than they will in North Europe. You've got, I think, Benelux, France, and UK, where we're very e-commerce driven, so a lot of the orders will be web to home, particularly in the UK. A little bit more web to retail in France and Benelux, but again, maybe because of particularly with France, the size of the country, then sometimes it's just easier for the consumer to pick something up from a store or a collection point than necessarily having it delivered to the house. And then Germany, it's very much driven by the big retail chains. E-commerce takes its place, and CVE themselves, got their own front-end brands. Pixum is part of CVE. That's a big e-commerce brand. But you've got all the pharmacies and the supermarkets and the electronics chains that have been big in photo in Germany and still are. So again, that web to home, it dominates everywhere now. But again, the in-store ordering is probably larger in Germany than anywhere else, and the web to retail element is probably larger in Germany than anywhere else still.
Yeah. The web to retail thing is interesting because, in the US here, we've had sort of a weird relationship with web to retail. We've had several people, big brands, Costco, Target, change their offering, let's put it that way, whether it's partnering with Shutterfly like Costco did, or just transferring it to their vendor like Target did. And I always seem that's always a missed opportunity, I think, for those retailers to not even just have any kind of presence. I mean, and I don't know whether it's because our country is so large that it's just too difficult to manage, or the retailers aren't receptive or something. But I've always thought, specifically like for Target, in-store photo of just a display or something year round to remind people to keep it going would be a natural fit for them. Right. I always thought Target and Shutterfly should have some sort of relationship. And, the only retailer partnership that I know Shutterfly has, for example, is with Best Buy, where if you buy enough stuff, they give you a free photo book, whoopee. So I just think, in terms of, what you see happening in Germany, and clearly, CVE is a public company, you can see their data. They clearly know what they're doing, and they're very successful. I think they just announced they're, raising their dividend again for the 10th straight year. So, and it's because they're able to touch successfully all the pieces of the market.
I think so, yeah. And I think for not just for them, but for some of the other print service providers, stroke wholesale labs, that's becoming a stronger part of the market, because the European retail on-site photo printing model is quite rapidly dropping away from retail mini labs now and becoming. Don't get me wrong, mini labs are still there, particularly I think in maybe some of the independent photo stores, but for some of the bigger chains, the tier now is instant print kiosks, which, as I said, are quite big in Europe, and then the back end ordering. And we've seen the Boots pharmacy chain in the UK go down that route. Save is now the kiosk provider, but you've got the whole power of the back end production that comes with that as well, and can drive a lot of orders straight to a wholesale lab. And obviously the innovation and product technology which comes with that. Likewise with some of the other labs that are partnering with various retailers as well. Whereas it's been a while since I looked at the US, but I always remember that photo prints were being driven quite a lot a few years ago in the US to store, and they could actually then be printed on a mini lab or even a kiosk in store, and consumer would pick them up rather than being all pushed back to District Photo or Fuji Labs or the various other wholesale labs there. So a slightly different model. Maybe the retailers being a bit more, if I dare say it, savvy in the US and driving that footfall in store. Because once you've got them in store, hopefully they're going to buy something else, whatever it may be.
Right. Well, in the film days, that was definitely the model was, boy, if we can get people to hang around a store for an hour while they wait for their film to be processed, we've got a winner. And they would even, provide the film and processing at cost, possibly, to just keep them there that long. So let's shift a little bit for a short time for the digital photo prints. Even within the countries you track, it's very different. Some are growing and some are not. Is there anything happening there? Is it more app driven or retailer driven? Because according to the data I'm looking here, Germany's up, Italy's up, Spain is up slightly. But the other ones are showing declines. Benelux, France, and UK are showing slight declines in the digital photo print category. Is anything happening there, or is that just the trend in those markets?
The differences are, I think, mainly predicated around the fact that everywhere, obviously, in 2020 in Europe, we saw retail close, and the whole on-site printing business kind of really hit the buffers. And even when they started to reopen, the kiosks you could only have every other kiosk in use and things like that because of distancing. We saw maybe Germany, Spain, Italy, where on-site is still a slightly stronger proposition. And in Germany, it's crazy because the sheer volume of print kiosks there across, some of these big retailers, that consumers that had to go online in 2020 started, not entirely, because some of them unfortunately lost forever, come back to retail and drive some of those volumes in those three countries. In France, Benelux, UK, which are already quite powerful e-commerce markets for photo, then I think even fewer consumers came back to retail. Arguably, some of those may have been, I don't know if you could say they were lost forever or not, but that could be some of the justification there. But again, in the UK and France, you've got some very powerful photo brands. You've got some newer photo apps that are really driving that web or app to home behavior. So yeah, I guess again, when you start looking at some of the vagaries of the actual channels in photo prints, and they vary again a little bit market by market. So when you put it all together, you can get this kind of these three up, those three down. The overall trend is kind of sort of leveling off now, I think.
Yeah, no, the reason I mention that is because I think it's one of those things where I think there's still some opportunity for photo prints, like we were discussing earlier.
Oh yeah,
and there are people who tend to overlook prints when they're creating their apps, right? They're looking at, they want to have a gift app or a book app, and the photo print specific apps tend to just go to the value consumer, right? Just cheap or free or what have you. And I just wonder if there's a place for a more premium print experience, and I'm not sure what that is and what that would look like, but I always felt that the devaluing of the photo print hasn't been a benefit to the industry.
I mean, I do wonder, this is just me thinking out loud here, that as we see this at the back end of the market, and it's the early days, but we've got one print service provider both in the US and here in Europe, which is now producing at least some of its prints on digital press rather than just using the silver halide main lab process. If some of these guys can't be savvy like they've done with photo books and say this is a photo paper, because often silver halide often doesn't mean anything to consumers, but if you say to them this is a photo paper photo book, bang, they'll pay a premium for it. So photo paper photo prints versus non-photo paper photo prints. And again, I don't want to get into the arguments of quality and perceived quality and between these prints. But maybe that's a way to go forwards with adding some value.
Yeah, because that is one of the things you can do. If you are producing prints on digital press, you've got the opportunity to try different substrates, right? And that is an opportunity there. But again, without people interacting with the prints physically in a retail store, or they're not going to order that online. So moving on to the wild and woolly world of photo merchandise. You've got a chart here breaking down the categories of, categories. And again, as you mentioned earlier, you've got posters, you got photo gifts, you got calendars, cards, and canvas. It seems like cards have been kind of a sleeper category for a few years, and they're really coming on strong. Why is that?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Why do some ideas stick and others flop? Where does grit come from? What kind of leaders create generational change? We're going to talk about all of this and so much more. Join us as we chat with some of the boldest trailblazers of our time on their failures, their wins, and lessons learned.
We promise we're going to get real and have some fun, because as entrepreneurs and business leaders ourselves, we know that being authentic and remaining positive are keys to unlocking success.
I think that there's two reasons. I guess in the 6 markets we're looking at in Western Europe, you've got 2 markets where greetings cards as a phenomenon are really big. The UK, we give cards for everything, birthdays, weddings, christenings, Christmas. Just generally, I sent my card. I use a web to print card company that not for photo, but just for stock images. And I sent my sister a silly card the other day just to say hello. We that's kind of what we do. And the Dutch do a bit of that as well. And these are single folded cards that typically cost around about the equivalent of about sort of 4 GBP, maybe €4.50. So they're quite a premium product. And a certain percentage are photo cards within that, driven by the likes of Moonpig and other brands in the market. Then you've got some other European countries where like multi-packs of either flat cards, almost postcard type cards, or folded cards are more popular, and they can often be more event driven, wedding, christening, Christmas, those kind of things, particularly in Spain and Italy. A bit of both going on in France. Not really that sort of greetings card mentality that the Dutch and the British have, and the Australians, for that matter. It's another way beyond Europe. It's another market that's pretty mad on greetings cards. We're seeing some of these web to print, which includes photo card brands, gain more momentum in Germany. I think Planet Photo, the French company, bought German company a few years ago called Bonnie Prince Wunderkarten, and that's continued to accelerate, not to the levels that we're seeing in the UK and the Netherlands, but there's some popularity there, and I think a lot of people pivoted to that in 2020 because they couldn't buy cards at retail. It may be a little bit more expensive, but when people are time poor and have the money, if they can just a few clicks on an app or a website and you're done, and then somebody else prints it and posts it, then, and again, photo or non-photo web to print cards, and that I guess for some of them is a benefit as well. So we saw, I think, a bit of a spike happen back in 2020 that's really accelerated that sort of whole web to print photo non-photo card sector. We're only looking at the photo element of it, but which is a subset of the overall sort of web to print even cards world.
Another category that is still fairly large from a value standpoint are calendars, and that just perplexes the heck out of me. Because you're talking, I mean, in the data you shared, it's almost a 200 million euro category within the Western Europe that you cover, and I'm thinking everyone has a calendar on their phone, and it's still people are printing calendars and putting on their walls. Why?
I think there's two things. I think that there's two big things. There's the young families and the female demographic that purchase a lot of photo products, and there's the gifting element. Q4 is generally the big gifting season for photo products, but calendars, November, December is the real real peak season for them, and they're a massive Christmas gift. I make a photo calendar for my parents every year with the pictures, from that year, and I think that's what continues to drive it. And the PSPs continue to innovate. There's only so much you can do with a calendar, admittedly, but papers, substrates, designs, a lot of it is software, and the way you can formulate the calendar as opposed to the actual physical printing of the calendar. But A3, A4, desktop, little Apex, whatever it may be. And we see brands like Vistaprint, for instance, always come in really strong. And again, I'm not promoting any specific brand, but
clearly they're one of the big players in that.
Yeah. So and it just, every time I think maybe it's going to peak, it doesn't. It just keeps on rolling and rolling and rolling. And I guess more people just keep cutting into calendars. I've never really looked at what the penetration rate is on that. The penetration rate on most photo products is relatively low, but there's always potential for more customers to come to that overall. I mean, again, I saw some figures a few years ago on personalization as a market, and I can't remember, but I know it was just a ridiculously high number that somebody like PwC had calculated for either for Europe or the US. And photo is just part of that juggernaut, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And finally, let's talk a little bit about Canvas, because that, I think, was a category that, again, has been around a long time, but just in the last few years has just shown continuous growth, and makes you wonder about, like, when are people going to run out of wall space? because and I know in the US I've talked to some of the vendors, and they think, well, listen, if we get this price down low enough, people will be just swapping out their canvas every year. They'll just replace that thing. It won't be, and I just don't think people do that. And it does concern me when people, hey, if we just drive the price down low enough, we can just, because I do think the perceived value of a canvas can be very high. What do you think is driving the growth on that? Because it is not that new of a product. My canvas is made, 15, 16 years ago. What happened?
I think some of it's a bit of a push from the production side of the industry, because you've got canvas, you've got acrylic, you've got alloy dye bond, glass, wood. There's so many different substrates, for want of a better word now, for wall decor. And then you've got the consumer demand. Now, in Western Europe, the Netherlands and UK are quite densely populated. Our houses are expensive, space is at a bit of a premium. France and Germany and Spain, Italy are much larger countries. People tend to have more room in their homes. I think you're right. People don't go on changing these products. But again, there's something that if you have a holiday, if you have a good experience on with a family events like that, people may sometimes make a product like that. And at the lower end, we've seen things like wall tiles, which arguably sort of sit into that decor space, although people might argue they're a gifting product rather than a wall decor product, come into that as well. Magnetic and stick on ones that you can stick on paintwork and remove without them ripping the paintwork off, and all those kind of things. Right. So yeah, the caveat I put around that is that the COVID effect on wall decor has been a massive boom in 2020 in the Western European markets, where a lot of people had time and like buying photo books, they decided to order wall decor.
Right.
And maybe even in 2021 as well. And all of a sudden there's a bit of a vacuum after that, where so much of that has been done in the last 2 years that we've definitely, from what I'm hearing, sort of later on last year into this year, seen that tail off a little bit. So we still think it's got legs, but with the kind of growth we're showing of single digit probably now growth over the next few years, but it's struggling a bit just because of the sheer amount that was produced and ordered in the last couple of years, or certainly in 2020 and 2021. The margins, as you say, are on wall decor, from both a producer and reseller point of view, particularly a reseller point of view, are phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. As with many personalized products, I think I've seen prices of things on non-photo personalized websites that have made my eyes water, but people pay for it. So good luck to them.
Yeah, best wishes for those people. And also, so Jeremy, if people wanted to learn more about you and Futuresource, where would they go, and how would they go about contacting you?
The Futuresource website is futuresource-consulting.com. I mean, I don't know if I can give you my email address or not over this, if that's too much detail, but mine is jeremy.wills, WILLS, at futuresource-hq.com. So I'm the lead analyst for our photo service, which covers these markets in Western Europe, as part of the sort of wider sort of focus on technology, software solutions, hardware, everything else that Futuresource has as a firm.
Well, thank you, Jeremy, for your time, and best wishes for continued success. And we'll be touching base with you, I'm sure, when you release your annual data, probably next fall.
Thanks, Gary. Lovely to speak to you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Dead Pixel Society podcast. Read more great stories and sign up for the newsletter at www.thedeadpixelssociety.com.